I'm Mike slash 8-Bit Blood, and I'm a night shift content creator.
Beautiful. Tell me about what is 8-Bit Blood?
So 8-Bit Blood is a name that kind of popped up, I guess, I don't know, about 15 years ago, and it's really my DNA. So you can tell that I'm a little bit older, kind of from, 80s generation. So it does have a lot to do with gaming, and I sweat and I bleed retro. So that's where it started.
Okay, so the 8-bit being that's the graphics back in the day, right? So and then the blood and sweat is your intensity, huh?
You could, yeah, for sure. And I carry that everywhere, as you know.
I didn't actually know that story prior to this. Obviously, we know each other from our regular lives, but I didn't. Yeah, I had no idea that's actually what that was about. That's funny.
Girl has her secrets. You don't. we got a lot to learn about each other.
Yeah,
Do I call you Brandon on this?
Whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
I'll call you Brandon.
Okay. Is that weird for you?
Well, I'm used to calling you Hall, so I think for the sake of this, I'll call you Brandon.
Okay, that's fine.
So many syllables.
So can you just give me a little insight, since we're talking about really your night shift? What is your day shift? Like, what is your actual career?
My actual career is I'm an analytics guy, so a lot of data work, real mustardy, brainy stuff. So data science adjacent. I'm not really a data scientist, but I dabble. But yeah, it's a lot of data analytics, dashboards, reporting, real fun stuff.
And as you know, that speaks directly to my heart and soul.
Oh, I know.
I know. Absolutely love data. So you're big Power BI. Obviously, Excel's beneath you, so you're beyond Excel.
I'm like decades beyond Excel, man. I see all these videos, like all the cool stuff you do with Excel. I'm like, get out of here.
Come on, bro.
Move on, guys. Move on.
Get on my level.
Excel's great.
I totally understand. What led you into that type of career?
So it started with, I did mapping, so geospatial intelligence. I started with paper maps and then digital maps, and then ended up building like mapping tools for companies. And so I went from geospatial data to kind of analytics and reporting. So when you think about a map is just a scatter plot, right? So when you go to data visualization and stuff like that, I kind of had a background in pretty pictures and all that stuff. So I just went for mapping to charts and graphs and all that fun stuff. So there's still some creativity in it, but I do miss mapping.
So mapping's actually was the original passion to get into that, and you kind of had to pivot then.
Yeah, and just like everything else, as you get to know me, I've stumbled into that. A friend of mine was like, hey, you should come do this. I'm like, all right, mapping, what is that? And so I started doing GIS work, which is Geographic Information Systems. Big fan. And so I got really into that for a while. And then someone else was like, hey, you should do some analytics work. I'm like, okay, I'll go do that. And I did that for a while, and it's been really fun. So it's, we're very resourceful people, the 80s generation.
Stripping into your careers.
Yeah. So I've kind of built a career off of just like, that's interesting. I want to learn that. And then doing that.
I guess that leads into the next piece of this, right? So you have your day shift, and your night shift turns into this content monster, I would say, that you bleed and sweat. So what triggered that? So you had your analytics, you're doing all that in the day, and then you're like, I want to spend the remaining waking hours of my day creating content. Why?
How therapeutic is this conversation? It's interesting. So it kind of starts out when I was younger, like TV and movies. I spent a lot of time kind of being babysat by 80s TV shows, talking Fall Guy, Magnum PI, great 80s movies, Goonies, Batteries Not Included, a little bit later, good stuff. So I was always in like stories. And that I really enjoy that. And so as I got older, I thought, I kind of want to start sharing some of my stories. And as a kid, I always like kind of wrote little stories. I draw, I doodle, I make art. I was into kind of all these kinds of things. So I just kind of started getting into storytelling. And then eventually, me and my wife, Erin, like we started going on trips and stuff like that. And of course, everyone, saw Casey and daily vlogs and kind of that stuff take off on YouTube. And
Casey Neistat, that is.
Yeah, Casey Neistat, that is. Yeah. And so, sorry. But yeah, so it's kind of influenced me. It's like, hey, I have stories I want to tell, and like I don't have enough time to tell all the stories I want to tell, which kind of much like you creates a backlog of just content with having a day job and all that fun stuff. But I don't know, it just kind of turned into like, I saw someone else sharing their stories through a unique way to do it in videos. I'm like, hey, I want to start doing that. So I was always into music, always into art. I mean, kind of see what's going on behind me, lots of instruments, lots of stuff. So it was just like another avenue to explore, and kind of, it was a new hobby that I took on too. And just like every hobby, I learned every facet of it. And so shooting, filming, how to shoot the right way, cinematography. Yeah, everyone bought a drone back in the day. So, I incorporate that. And now I'm trying to write my own music for my videos. And that's slow. That's taken me a long time because it's really emotional when you're writing your own music for your videos. And we do everything. You do too. So it's like,
I don't do that. No, I don't do that. I don't do everything. You do everything.
Well,
for sure.
Well, yeah. That's what slows me down too. If I just was like,
we will get into that.
Yeah. Anyway.
So the niche and your focus area was really seeing Casey Neistat vlog and you going, holy crap, like what a way to tell stories about your life. Because he's probably one of the best storytellers on YouTube. And then you said, that is really interesting. I'd love to share my side.
Yeah. And so like 2018, I uploaded my first YouTube video, and it's goofy, much like kind of everything in everyone's old YouTube catalog. It's really interesting and raw, and really interesting. By interesting, I mean cringy. But no, it's just raw. It's just out there. It's incomplete. It's just like, I had this idea for a thing. I need to make this thing. Just like when you hear a song as a musician, well, like I have to play this now to get it out of my head. So you kind of put it out there. You take it in, you internalize it, and you put it back out. So it was kind of like that. But yeah, seeing Casey tell stories that way, it was like, well, I can kind of tell my stories in a similar way. And I don't want to completely steal everything he's done. And it's hard not to, because, when you kind of grow up in a similar like decade, similar kind of feral surroundings, it's like the voice is similar. So I try to be real careful not to just direct copy what he does. And that slows me down too, because I'm like, oh, this is a Casey edit. I have to redo this. Like, dang it.
I know.
Yeah.
No, I get it. So while you were learning everything about the process, which I think is way more difficult than I think people give it credit for, what was the hardest piece of that for you?
So probably piecing together in the edit a cohesive story-driven video that feels complete start to end. And I'm still trying to get better with every video. I'm not great at it, but I'm getting better, right? So making something that feels like it's complete within like a 4 to 7 minute YouTube video, which is typically my target for that kind of video. But yeah, that was really the hardest part. So the gear, I mean, camera thing I picked up on, went on a deep dive and like, okay, here's coloring and all that stuff. Got that. Filming, like, okay, I kind of know what to film, where to film it. The hardest part was the family part of it. So kind of, yeah, the hardest part was making sure to balance it with family. Let me be very clear about that. The editing was not the hardest part. I'm thinking as I'm talking through this, balancing the family with content is very challenging when you have a full-time job. If you don't have a job and all you're doing and your life is wonderfully perfect and you don't have anything pulling you in any other direction but whatever you want to do, I love you people. But when you have a day job and then you have responsibilities and you have all these things, it's like the hardest part for me was making sure that I didn't kind of get in the way of our life. Because when I would film, I would get in the way of our life, and it would kind of take away from like the authenticity of the moment. Because I could tell like, okay, this is uncomfortable for Erin, me just filming stuff, my wife. So it's like, okay, I have to be real considerate of like what I'm doing, what I'm doing. So I try to be a little more focused on that now, so it's not so disruptive.
So you mean like when you guys travel and let's say you're doing a review of that area, you're trying to take in the moment with her while also collecting clips for when I get home, I'm going to need this B-roll.
Yes. It is a challenge. So it's interesting because when she's out of town, like when I'm home, like I don't film as many videos at home because it's like it's easier to film when you're on the road. Because like, oh, I'm going to the airport, I can film an airport segment on the plane, landing, like it's like all this great stuff, all this audio transitioning from one spot to another. But like when she's not here, like I'll film a video like start to finish because I don't want to disrupt anyone's world, right? So I'm very considerate about like if someone's in the shot when I'm filming, I'm very considerate of them too, because I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. And early on, Erin was a little uncomfortable. She's like, what are you doing? You're like 40, you're pulling out a camera and like, what is this? I'm like, I know.
This wasn't that long ago either, if 2018 was your first video.
It wasn't, but I'm very immature. So like I suffer from arrested development. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe in my early 30s mentally.
Just riding the wave, baby.
Just riding the wave. Just riding the wave.
So that's so interesting. So the time management piece is obviously massive with your day shift, night shift. So walk me through, if you're going to create content, let's say you're either going to do, and let's do both because you also stream. What does a 24-hour period look like for you if you're going to edit and sit down and put a video together versus a 24-hour day if you're going to stream?
So we'll start with stream because that's probably the easiest. So wake up, I try to go to the gym in the morning. Usually I snooze and I don't. Sorry, Aaron. And so I'll go to work, 8-9 hours, go to the gym afterwards, 2 hours of clanging and banging, get home, eat dinner with Aaron. That's like an hour. And then I stream for 3.5-4 hours. And then it's roughly 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m. Central Time. Aaron's asleep. So that gives me time. If I have video to edit, I'll jump in the edit, start kind of putting some stuff together with anything I filmed. And so that's kind of the streaming day. So that is very regimented. Like everything is regimented. So at lunchtime at work, I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to do on the stream tonight? What am I going to talk about? And there's also the other side of that where for 3.5-4 hours, I lose productivity. But I gain getting to hang out with people and creating a safe place for people to have fun and just goof around. So that's important to me. And I've kind of found the value in that because early on, it was like, I'm just taking away for being able to edit videos. And that's still true. But, the editing process takes some time. So like outside.
So how much sleep are you getting on your stream?
4 to 5 hours.
Yeesh. Come on, Mike.
I'm like, I know, but I've conditioned my body. 6 hours is like my upper limit, right? Between 4 and 6, I'm okay. Anything below that or above that's nice. I don't get it a whole lot, so I don't know what that feels like. But anything below that is bad.
Yeah. So before you jump over to the editing day, what do you let me in your head on your thoughts around what Casey did for 3 straight years of a video every day for, I think it was 3.5 years, something like that.
So I think so, maybe longer. I don't remember, but that sounds right. So it's interesting because watching Casey do his marathon daily vlog, it was like, oh, he can do it. I can do it. Right. And so once you start making a few videos, you start to really understand the complication and the challenge with that, especially if you have family to juggle with it.
And he did.
And he did. And I know that like, I don't want to, like, he had a job, like he made commercial content and like he had a job. It wasn't like he was just sitting around like, well, I'm going to make a video today. I got 24 hours. Okay. Like he had stuff going on. Right. And so before I started making videos, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. No problem. Like I just get like maybe 4 hours a day together to kind of film, shoot, like, I don't know. But when you think about the story involved and his skill set behind it, which is really what propelled it, he knew how to transition from point A to point B and continue a story arc throughout a 2-minute video, 10-minute video, 15, like across the board. So he used his filmmaking background and his personality and I don't know how he did it for that long. Now I scratched the surface. I don't upload regularly because I don't make enough time to kind of make content, upload it and all that fun stuff, which I want to do more of. I've got a plan to do that. But kind of as I started making videos, it really made me appreciate and like understand the epic feat, the compromise of his personal life that he had to make just to maintain that schedule. And he achieved at a high level, but there's a lot of videos kind of in his vlog that basically say, don't do this.
Yeah. So what he also talked about, though, he did open up, I think, after that whole stint about how it really affected his personal life, which I thought which he didn't really talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some snippets right through that run of, his relationship with his wife getting strained and stuff. But they really opened up about it, I think, after he stopped doing.
They did. There was a while there where I think he had a brief podcast with Candace called Couples Therapy where they really got into it. So like, it was nice to hear him talk about those things. So I try to take in some of that as I'm making content so I don't fall into that. Because it's real easy when you have the momentum of a story and you're filming and you have 2/3 of what you need, and you're like, I just need one more piece, and you have it in front of you, but like, I'm not gonna like push anyone out of the way, Aaron, to get to that final piece. It just has to like fall together. Now there are moments where I do kind of let her know, like, hey, when we get here, I need to film this, or I'll kind of let her know ahead of time, here's what I want to film. Here's A, B, and C. I have A and C. I need to film B, because not everything's filmed in sequence. Just saying.
You have a checklist of things, and you get to them when you can.
Yeah, but it was really nice for him to kind of open up and be honest about that. And I've tried to incorporate some of those things into my process just to make sure I don't cause some of those problems.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So going back to your 24-hour, what is a video, like a night where you're going to spend some video? What does that look like?
So typically if I need to film something, I'll kind of, while I'm working, I'll think in my head and I'll map out where I need to film it and what I need to film. And since I have started filming some gym content, a lot of it revolves around gyms, depending on which one I go to. And then I'll film.
How many gym memberships do you have?
I mean, like 3 now. Okay. Well, everyone has more than one. You got to, right?
I'm not sure that's a true statement.
I think it is. I have one for powerlifting and strongman. I have another one that's a nice, chill bodybuilding situation. And I have another utility one just in case I need it. Right? It's everyone does that.
I don't think that's true at all.
There's all my friends do.
Oh my gosh. Anyway.
So I'll film a little bit, kind of figure out what I'm missing, maybe take my drone to work with me, film some drone stuff if I need some shots just for kind of context, and let the viewer know kind of where I am in the video and for transition purposes. And then I'll get home, copy that video to my orange hard drive, wherever it is, and kind of get my sequences lined up and find music, and then just start to throw a timeline together. So I'll just throw a rough timeline together, figure out where the gaps are. If I have everything I need, I'll finish that up, like that rough timeline. If not, I'll leave gaps in there knowing I need to film some extra stuff to kind of fill it out.
Okay. Is that also a 4 to 5 hour night? Is that pretty consistent across the 2 days?
I mean, if we're talking about like a 5-6 minute YouTube video, I am a slow editor and I edit so many times. So my first rough timeline will take, whatever time to kind of throw it out there, sequence it. That'll be like an hour, right? I'm like, okay, I have like a rough draft of something. Then I'll start to cut it up, make one edit, just destroy it. Hate it. That's terrible. That's awful. No one wants to see this. There's no value. Or like, oh, I hated that song. I edited to the song. That doesn't work. Let's throw it away and start over. Gotcha. And so that happens a few times. So like for one video, like good grief, it might be an hour per 30 seconds of edited video for me. Like I said, I am slow. Now, if I'm uploading more consistently and I'm editing more, that speeds up. It's like a muscle, like if I work it gets stronger. I go faster. If I take like a month or 2 off, it takes me a while to kind of get back into the groove. And I am like such a harsh critic. I'm not a perfectionist about a whole lot, but when it comes to like my stories and my videos, I take like great pride in what I put together. Even if it's not entertaining to everyone, like I'm focused on like, this is the value I add. Here's how the story is told. And I think someone needs to hear or see this. So I take it very personal.
I think that's what makes because you focus so much on story, I think that's what people really relate to. I think that's probably my weakest in that area. I'm not a very good storyteller. I'm more factual, which is why I lean more into that, where you can take a video of a Maine and turn it into like a piece of art. So it's fascinating.
That was a fun one. I appreciate that. But also don't beat yourself up. You're a great storyteller too. I just know like how you deliver information is a little different, but I think everybody has that muscle. They just need to work it. I'm going to say the word muscle probably 1,000 times. Sorry.
Because you have 3 gyms.
Just like everyone else watching or listening.
Oh my gosh. So when you're having those days and you're going to have a night of creation or being artistic or how do you switch that gear? Is that dinner with Aaron your gear switch? Is that like you switch brains over?
That is a great question. Yeah, getting home and kind of that time with her is a good way to clear my mind and go from one phase to another. And it's interesting. So it's like when I'm streaming, I have to step away because I stream from here. Like this is what my stream looks like. And so I stream here. I have to step back and I'll play like my guitar for like 5 minutes just to completely like flush my brain. And like my social battery is endless, so I don't really have like that energy dump after a stream, which most normal humans do. I just need another activity to break it up. So that's how I do it typically after a stream.
Yeah, that's so fascinating that you can stream for 3 or 4 hours and then you could probably, if you didn't have to get up, you would probably go longer.
If I had a value or something to offer during that time, absolutely. But there are moments like during the stream where it's like, well, I got nothing left to offer. And then I'll just like, all right, that's it, guys, bye. But yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with value. And so I don't usually go live unless like I have a little something mapped out. And so it does typically have a clock that winds down. But if people keep talking, I have enough words. I have all the words, so I can just kind of hang out as long as someone wants to. So it's a fun game for chat to kind of keep things going. And I have to sneak out or else they'll keep me there.
It's a very empathetic approach, which is why I think for the you have a pretty consistent size audience that show up every single time when you're streaming, especially. And I think part of that is because you're always thinking about the audience, probably more than yourself, every time you're either making a video or making anything creative. And I'm not sure everybody lives in that headspace. I know I don't all the time.
I try to. I don't do a whole, there's a lot of things I can do to grow quickly. I don't really focus on those things because I enjoy the community that we have. I enjoy the people that have joined us for this journey. And so it's like, I'm very picky when people come in. I'm like, are you cool? Are you one of us? So I'm not one that's just going to let in. I will let everyone in, but if you don't fit in here, it's like, you can go find another place to hang out. Like,
Yes,
this might not be for you, and that's okay. But I don't need those people that don't get value out of the content I create to hang out. I'm not really interested in having numbers, which is why if you look at my YouTube channel, like the subscription numbers are low. And so it's like, I got to start getting more subs, but like, I don't ask for anything. I just make what I make and I don't follow any algorithms or anything. So maybe I should. I don't know.
It depends. It's all goal based, right? Your goals don't really align with that. You're all about value to your audience, period.
Pretty much.
Man,
numbers would be nice. But yeah, I'm focused on value and the content that's true to me and authentic. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it falls in line with, if I make a video, I need to make 15 shorts. I need to upload those shorts. I need to get people. I should focus on that, but I don't have time. I'm a night shift creator, man.
I got the night shift. Speaking of creative outlets, like what are your current platforms and why did you choose them?
So like platforms, you mean like social platforms or like?
Yeah, like what do you use to get your content out there?
So right now, well, because I have so many things going on, I can only really focus on a few right now. So Instagram is kind of the main hub where you kind of get to know like a little bit more about me. Twitch is the live streaming, and YouTube is more of the stories and movies that I kind of like to tell and like to make. And so those are really the three I focus on. I do Twitter, I do TikTok, but it's just they're so specific to the platform. I don't have the time or energy to like make stuff specific to those. So I basically Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. That's basically my focus right now.
Okay. What do you feel are your biggest challenges juggling both these roles? And then how do you like make sure you're getting them right on both sides?
So as far as my like day shift and night shift work, probably the hardest part for me is to kind of get my brain clear and open for all the, like, in my mind, the creativity needed to make the videos and the content I want to make. So I spend most of the day working on kind of heavy number crunching analytics, which I enjoy, but I need to really kind of get my mind away from that sticky, mustardy stuff and like loosen up and get things flowing. And so it's a different discipline. So I jump back and forth between like right brain and left brain quite a bit. I would love to stay kind of more in the creative world. And so, I mean, that's tends to be why I'm kind of goofy and silly sometimes, just because if things get too serious, I'm like, what are we doing here?
Do the skill sets in both those worlds for you, do they ever cross-contaminate?
So the analytics side does come into everything else. That part of my brain does kind of seep into the data that we have access to and the platforms that we use, which is nice. And some of the external data that I can find to kind of help me tell my stories and figure out what people are interested in, how better to tell stories. So I do a lot of what I do is data driven. On the other side of that, I don't get to use as much creativity as I would like in my day job. If I could do creative things all day long, I would. And I find ways to kind of put it in there every now and then, but it's just a lot of data and numbers.
Does your social side of your content creation seep into your day job? Like, do people get to see 8-bit when they're talking to Mike?
So some do. Okay. It is, I would prefer that everyone would know who I really am. And for the most part, if you find me on socials or anything, that's pretty much me. Yeah. And so when I'm at work, buttoned up, a little quieter, and it's not easy for me. You know me. So, but yeah, it's been interesting. A few people have kind of discovered that side, and they're like, "Hey, you stream?" I'm like, "Hey, I saw one of your videos." I'm like, yeah. What do you think about it? And so they get a little uncomfortable because, like, oh, this is a guy I work with making videos. Like, that's weird. I'm like, yeah, that's weird, but I like making them. Like, let's talk about it. So it's just always interesting to see someone like that kind of convert. And I have some people from work now that have found me on socials. And I'm not that hard to find. I don't hide. Right. You search my name, you'll find 8-bit blood everywhere. And I've worked hard to do that and index it on things with my data brain. So that's been fun and it's worked. So, but yeah, it's been interesting.
Do you find those conversations uncomfortable?
I don't. They do, because it's like they've uncovered a secret. I'm like, who are you? I'm like, I'm mostly that. Like, hey, Batman. But yeah, so then, when stuff like that, it kind of opens the door to get to know a little bit more about me. And I would prefer to be just me everywhere. But, can't always be this goofy, colorful person in a work environment. You gotta dial it down a little bit.
Yeah, I shied away from that for quite a long time. And
I'm glad you've stopped shying away from that. How does that how does that work for you?
Yeah. It's been, I think, really rewarding. And I don't really know what the fear was, but I think it was just the fear of not knowing what people would say, right? And those conversations actually made me really uncomfortable, maybe because I was like embarrassed of it or as a hobby. But then once you realize that most people are okay, or they're like going to ask you a ton of questions about it. And then I was like, oh, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure what the thing was. I had lots of people who were encouraging me to cross those, cross the streams, Ghostbusters. But I heard the new movie's terrible. Total side. Yeah, I know. That's really sad to me.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I think it was just, I think it was more embarrassing for me that I was doing something like that, which I don't really know why, because it's quite difficult to do. And I'm normally okay with trying new things and then failing. So I'm not sure what that was. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's where we're kind of similar. I don't mind failing. And when someone comes up to me that knows me outside of my content and discovers it, I'm always curious to ask, like, hey, what did you get out of that? What do you remember about it? Like, I use it as like kind of a data conversation for me.
Sure.
Because most of those people that find me aren't active on YouTube, aren't active on Twitch, aren't as active on Instagram. And so I start to ask them, like, hey, what brought you into that? How did you find it? So then I'm getting data on how people get pulled into a platform. And then I get extra data on, okay, like what, like, me, you saw the space, so you're familiar with me, and that's why you dove into it. But like, is that weird? And so like, I'll ask the uncomfortable questions sometimes because I don't mind.
Right. Yeah.
But it's been interesting. It's been interesting.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. Yeah. So how do you differentiate between the passion, I would say, of content creation? Because you said that creative side is really like your passion, and then your day-to-day being your professional life and that whole world. From a mental side of things, is one taxing more than the other?
So I feel like I have an endless battery for creativity and the things I make in the content, right? My day job, because of the nature of what it is, it feels like it does have kind of a shorter battery to it.
Sure.
So if I could just make content full time, I would. But we got to make money to live. So it's real interesting. So it's like when the workday ends, obviously I go to the gym, but then I leave the gym like running to make content or running the stream like it's the last day of school. It's like really exciting. When I have a video idea, I have it mapped out. I need to go film this location. I have the story I want to tell. It's really fun. It's really fun.
So that actually energizes you for your evening.
Pretty much.
Up. Yeah, that's
pretty
cool.
much. And it sustains. So I do
Okay.
take in quite a bit of caffeine, but for the most part, I got enough energy just to get through it. So
You have any time management tips for anybody who's looking to do this as like a side hustle or hobby? Do you have any things in that area that you didn't do at the beginning or maybe you learned over time?
get organized early. Don't wait until you have a backlog of content or things or files before you get organized. So like for me, like organizing my timelines and my files for Adobe Premiere, that's something I waited like 2 years to do. And I don't know why I did it. And then I started saving off every song I use in the video. So I would know if like, because I don't like using the same songs in the video. So I'm like, okay, I've used those are off the table. And so I have this like back catalog to search for things that I need to exclude, unless I have like a theme. Like I have certain songs that are themes. But like without being organized, I'd have to go through like all these folders and all my timelines. Like I used that song for Aaron like 2 years ago. Where's that? So I would just say if you're starting now, like get organized with your files and your data and your content, whatever that means. Figure that out. It's not that hard, but you just should start that way. That was a big one for me because I tend to be all over the place. Because like I said, I do an edit, I destroy it. I do another one, I destroy it. So I have like so many saved files in so many different places. I have like edits in progress, done edits. Sometimes those folders lie.
No, that's brilliant because you are absolutely correct. If you are not and you worked on something and you can't find it, you want to really stop the creative juices, like deal with
Yeah,
like real life stuff in the saving process. Like
dude.
it kicks you out of the stream.
We had a quick side story. One of my friends got married and I did the ceremony and she was like, the wife was like, hey, can you come bring your camera and record it? I said, yeah. So I brought my GoPro, my DSLR, recorded it. That was like 3 years ago, right? She's been like, hey, can I get the wedding video? I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I made a YouTube video. It's like 5 minutes long. It's in there. You can just watch that. I'm like, no, she needs the full wedding video. It took me like 2.5 years to find it. Like I'd see her like every few months. She's like, hey, you got that video? I'm like, yeah, I'll get it. I'll get it. But it's because I wasn't organized. It wasn't easy for me to jump into. And when you're
Sure.
transitioning from like your day job to the night shift, you need to make that transition as easy as possible. So staying organized helps you save time. Just get in the flow of the edit because I'm big on flow. And if you don't get started the right way, it takes a while to get moving.
Yeah, that's a really good one. You're right. If you're really pumped up for the creative process and you get hung up on a process issue, it can kick you in the butt and then you lose a couple hours and you're like defeated for the day.
Yeah. And if your family and friends want you to take pictures or video, get it to them the next day.
Pro tip.
Just do it because everyone's going to ask you, hey, can you bring your camera? Yeah.
What's your creative process to come up with an idea for a video?
So usually it's something I'm interested in, but the focus for me is, that's an interesting question. So right now I'm focused on kind of legacy, right? Me and Aaron don't have kids. So typically when I have an idea for a video, I try to find a way to make it a part like of the legacy of 8-bit and Aaron, right? So I try to make a story that will this impact a kid that I know? Like we're godparents to so many kids. Like, will this story help a kid out? Will the story inform something? Will the story give them another look at the world's best aunt and uncle? And so I try to sprinkle some of that in and also value like a broader audience. Like if it's a fitness focused video, then like, okay, what does a person get out of this? For the most part, it's for me trying to make things more accessible. If someone's intimidated by something, I show them how goofy and non-intimidating it actually is in most of my content. So that's really a lot of what I'm trying to do, but it really is focusing on kind of that legacy value at this point.
I bet you I could ask, and I'm just going to throw a crazy stat out there. I bet you could ask 10 content creators who are doing this on the regular, and I'm not sure the word legacy would come out of it.
I mean, I'm 44, right? I mean, that's most content creators are a little bit younger. They're focused on making this a full-time thing, which is, I wish I could do that too. Don't we all? I'm in the same boat as them. But there's certain things you can do to kind of shortcut and speed up and build a following and get there. And those are things that don't align with the stories I want to tell. So it's a longer road for me. So I found that to be true with most content creators that I've met. And that's been really interesting because I appreciate anyone that goes through this journey to try to build something and tell their stories, right? But there's always a bit of a separation for me. And it's like, okay, like I'm a bit of an alien here, just like I kind of always was growing up. And so that's kind of a part of my story too. But that's been interesting because I haven't found a lot of that. And like, I think Casey now, you see some of his stories, not to go back to him, but you can tell he's focused more on legacy because he's older. He's in his 40s.
Yeah.
And I wish there were more people my age, our age, that were brave enough to tell their stories. Because I think we'd learn a lot from these people.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Because the voice, the content creation voice is what, in the early 20s?
It's a really good point, man.
And on TikTok, it's even younger than that. And so, and I'm not saying anything's bad as far as content, but I want more heart and kind of the stuff I watch and find the older I get. And, that's what I'm trying to put out.
I think that's what this is going to be for me. I think this is my legacy plug because I like doing this kind of thing. And it's very different from probably all my other stuff, but it's probably the easiest for me to do because it's not my story. I just like learning stories about other people.
And you ask really good questions too. A lot of the conversations we've had, just the questions you asked have helped me reframe my approach to content. It's been very interesting kind of talking to you about it and you letting me share kind of what I do and my vision. And you've been really good about asking the right questions to make me think and like stop me on something. I'm like, wait a minute, I need to think about that because I tend to go pretty fast. And you kind of help me slow down. I'm like, okay, hold on. Brandon said this. I need to think about this.
I'm not sure I wrapped my head around that until right now. So thank you for that. It's fascinating.
It's cool.
Can you give me a particular moment or a project that was in your content world that you found very successful, that you look back on and you're really proud of?
Oh man. So it's going to sound weird because it's not going to be the stuff that people are all about wanting to see on YouTube, but it really is like the time capsule stuff with my nieces and our Disney trips. Yeah. And some of the raw cringy stuff I put out there early on to see where I was from a creative perspective. Because I remember where I was professionally at the time. And there were some frustrating moments, right? So I see, I use that as an outlet because I needed to get away from what I was doing for my day job. I had to make something. And that's why it's awkward. That's why it's weird. That's why it's incomplete, but I had to do something. But I think probably the stuff with the nieces and Aaron and like the latest anniversary video with Aaron is real sweet. And you and Jen were in it. And that was so great. And it was kind of full circle. But I think that was a tearjerker. Well, it's also one of the most personal. And it's interesting because it didn't really get a lot of views. And I'm okay with that. It's just, I told the story the way I wanted to tell it. And it was a true and honest story. And it had heart and meaning. And I'm really proud of that because what you saw in that video that I wrote down to Erin was what was in her card that I gave her. So like none of that was really done for a video. Like all that was real. And sometimes you film stuff. It's like, well, I need to put filler in here to make it look like, but like, this was like, no, this is important. This is meaningful. Like it's going to be genuine. And so I was really proud of that.
Yeah, you should be, man. Because I remember when Jenny and I watched it when I saw my notification that it popped up, and Jenny was bawling.
I didn't mean to. I mean,
anybody who's listening to this who wants to see how every man should handle their anniversary, I mean, it was baller, dude. It was so good. It was so emotional, raw. Was that scary putting that rawness out there? I guess rawness is
it's really odd because it was a little bit scary, but I don't know if I've had an edit go faster than that one.
Get out of here,
dude. That one flew because I didn't even have, obviously you can tell before I went on that trip, I had some idea that like, hey, I need to film some stuff about this. And I'd already written the card. And so I'm like, okay, I know what I already said in the card. I'm just going to say that. And so I basically just had it segmented already because it was in order. And then I just filled it in with stuff that we did. I'm like, this is easy. And then I went to the back catalog and pulled some emotional stuff. And I'm like, it's an important part of our story. It's not a happy part, but no story is always completely happy. So, but it's an important part of who we are.
Do you think the edit was so quick because it just was your story?
Yes, I think so. It was extremely personal. And yeah, I may have cried a little during the edit. And by little, I mean a lot. It was very, It's odd. It was very therapeutic for me to kind of touch on some of those hard parts of our story, but yeah, it was very personal.
Yeah,
And
it was.
so it's something that I've thought about the right way to share for a very long time. And so I already had it in my head, like how I was going to share it. So I just plugged that in because I want to incorporate more of kind of who we are into my stories. And that's a big part of it.
You've been probably making that video for how long? That's probably one of the other reasons, right? You've been
Ooh.
working that storyboard for probably years.
Probably at least 3 or 4. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. And like I have a few other things I want to write a play called Adventures in Fertility. I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to leave that there. But anyway.
That's deep, dude.
Yeah.
So on the complete opposite side of that, what is for anyone listening who's like, this all sounds amazing, this is something I want to get into, this is what I want to spend my dark hours doing, what is a moment where you're like, ugh, sometimes this shit ain't worth it?
Well, you have certain expectations with what you're going to make and what you're going to put out there. I would say if you're starting out, you need to get the reps in. So don't get so bogged down with the perfect story, the perfect edit. None of them are perfect, because when you upload a video, you will always think in your mind and go back to it, I could have done that better. So the whole adage, what perfection is the enemy of progress, don't get bogged down in the minutia of being perfect. Make sure the story's there. Make sure you have a flow. It doesn't have to be super snappy like Mr. Beast edits, which wear me out. Yeah. It just needs to be your pace, but make them, get them out. Just make it.
So you live by that first 100 videos rule?
Define that rule for me before I answer that question.
You really shouldn't critique yourself until you got 100 done. Like, you can look back and learn things, but like, don't dig in for like real self-critique until you got that 100 in.
I think so. I think that's true. And I think even past then, I think you still need to kind of critique a little, but probably not as much as people would think. Because once you have the experience and the time and your timeline and the story and the development and your personality is in it, if it's genuine, you're going to put out something that's real and authentic, that's meaningful to you and someone else. So I don't think like, and obviously I'm saying that, and we are our worst critics. We are so harsh. And so it is hard when you're in edit. It's like, I should upload a reel of everything I cut out of my videos. It's mostly me saying, God, that was stupid. Like, oh, that sounded bad. Like, that's not even a word. It's like, what am I doing? But you will do that forever. You will always do that. You always second guess. But like, if you get enough in your timeline to get a story out, just knock it out, move on to the next one. It's okay. It's okay. As long as you got a story in there and it has heart, it's authentic, it'll be fine.
Where's your content journey going in the future, you think?
So I think my content journey in the future, that's a good question. Something I've been thinking a lot about is getting on a more consistent schedule, but really focus on that legacy piece and think about, okay, when me and Aaron aren't here anymore, all the kids and all the people in our life will ask the questions like, hey, what were they like? Hey, how would they answer this question? Hey, what would they do in the situation? So for me, it really is hopefully exposing more of those things and those lessons. So like the things I got from Mr. Rogers when I was a kid, like I was pretty feral and left alone a lot. So like Mr. Rogers raised me. And so I try to be like a buff Mr. Rogers now.
Yoki Rogers.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the spirit of what I want to do. But keep in mind that like if there's a kid that's close to me in my life that I know, hey, they need to hear this, like I'll incorporate something like that into a video, knowing that if they need it now, they might need it later. And if that one needs it now, then another God kid might need it, or someone else in kind of the community might need it. So kind of really adding value and still telling stories and letting people get to know me and Aaron, but really kind of adding value and probably more fitness stuff. So we'll see.
So anybody not watching this or who can't tell, give me 2 of your favorite gym stats so people realize when you say you're into lifting, these are the types of things that you can do.
So gym stats,
hard flex.
Like, are you talking about max lifts and stuff?
I don't care. I don't know this language. So you hit me with what people would understand and go, okay, like I get it. This dude can lift things.
Okay. I'm just going to throw out 3 numbers.
Okay.
Max bench, 455 pounds. Max squat, 515. I've deadlifted over 600, but I don't deadlift heavy anymore. I'm just a gym bro, strong man, just having fun. But yeah, I like to lift. So it's natural that stuff's going to bleed into my videos and some of my content.
Sure.
But it's got personality too. I'm not just a meathead, which I don't mind that term, by the way. That's sweet. We like that. We don't mind that.
That's a whole nother episode we could dive into.
It is.
So you've talked about this quite a bit through this episode, that if you could do this full time, you would. It would be something that would scratch that creative itch that, is more who you are.
Mm-hmm.
If that would actually happen, do you feel your view on it would change? Like, as it being a job, then something you have to do?
So not necessarily. So for me, all of my content tends to be like a means to an end, right? Creatively, it's to tell my stories, but also open up kind of what I want to do outside of that, which is also, I have like 3 kids books I want to write. So if the content was something that was able to support kind of the extra things I want to do from a creative perspective, it would open up the door for those things. Because I can't just do one thing. I stream, I make YouTube videos. I'm a musician. I want to finish some stories that I have written down that are.
You're an artist.
I have a hard time, but I like to paint. So it would make time for other creative things that I would love to do. And, we hold those stories so personal, and like a kid's book to me is like the most personal thing. So that is the thing that's taken the longest to write and get out and make. So if the content, making videos and all this other stuff would afford more time for that, that's probably what I'd end up doing it. But also lean into more kind of storytelling and upload more videos and tell other stories.
What does 8-Bit's retirement look like then? Because then you have all the time in the world to do all of these things.
That's interesting. So it'd probably be more writing. It would probably be more photography. Boy, I've never really thought about that. I'd probably start a band. I think I would. Can you play an instrument?
No. I
have a drummer. I can't say his name because he's.
I will be the manager. That is the only thing I'm good at.
Okay, done. I'm writing that down.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So you would fill that time with even more creative outlets than you've already kind of tested yourself with.
Probably. And obviously travel as much as I can with Aaron. Like the travel thing is so rewarding and so fulfilling, and you learn so much about yourself and people when you travel. So we'd probably travel a lot more. So you'd probably see a lot more travel videos from me.
That's okay. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, the old travel content guy.
So you talked about a couple things already around organization, things like that. What are some other, give me 3 hot takes for aspiring creators who may be listening to this that say, hey, focus on these things first and they'll get you the farthest ahead. So outside of being organized, what are 3 more things that you would say?
So I think focus on your values, focus on who you are, and focus on what you have to offer. That doesn't have to be something that you can make money off of. It just needs to be your perspective, your ideas, and make sure that it's you. Try not to get too caught up in the algorithms if you can. Those are important to grow, and I'm not saying that those are a bad thing. I tend to kind of fall back and to focus on just telling your story and getting your art out there, and more of an artist approach. But I mean, your art doesn't mean anything unless it's seen. So if you're okay with your stuff not being seen, just pump out what you want. Don't worry about algorithms. But I'd say early on, you just need to get into the mode of making things and telling stories. So I just get in there, make stuff. Don't worry about the algorithm. And try to include your family early on. Try to let them be a part of the story. Don't try to make yourself look too cool. Don't try to make yourself look too fancy. Focus on your authentic self and your surroundings. So for me, when I started out, Erin didn't feel comfortable with me like filming her a whole lot because it was just weird. Like I'd pull up this big DSLR. What do you think? What do you think? Say something. I need content. That's really awkward, right?
Sure.
I get it. And so like over time, she got more comfortable, and I've eased my approach to that with her. So, but the earlier you include the people around you, the easier it will be when you're filming out in public, because filming out in public is always uncomfortable. It
Mm-hmm.
never gets easier.
Nope.
People always look at you. People always think you're weird, even in like the age of TikTok where everyone has a phone out and recording something. When you pull out a DSLR, or if you're filming with a GoPro, it's a little different. People notice that. And be careful. One extra bonus tip, be careful where you film. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Safety is important. I'm a big guy, so no one messes with me. But if you film in the wrong place, it can be bad. So just be careful. Be aware of your surroundings when you're filming at all times.
Yeah, you and I are similar in that like when we do, because I do quite a bit of travel stuff too, I'm like a 6 a.m. riser and I go get a lot of my resort footage early in the morning, so I'm not bothering people, especially around the pools and around the beach. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, so I'm really trying to get that. But not everybody does that in this day and age, and people don't appreciate that either. So
yeah, and some people want that reaction. That's been the interesting thing. I've noticed lately that some of the people starting out or some of the younger audience, they want that reaction, and that's a part of the content, which is that's what you do. Cool. But my focus is I want everyone to feel comfortable watching, and I want everyone to feel comfortable in the space when I'm recording. And so when you're at Disney, that's easy because everyone is used to complete chaos. Everyone's used to Disney vloggers everywhere. So pulling out a camera is nothing, right?
Right.
But like, when you go to the grocery store, it's a little different.
Yeah, I totally agree. So another thing that you've talked about quite a bit is the value you bring your audience. And I think that's a real key for new creators to focus on. It's if you're reading or you're reading up on how to start a channel or how to really, just social media in general, like the value you bring to the audience is key there. And you've talked about it extensively. So I think that's really important. And I think you do that. I think it's the main focus of your storytelling all the time, which is why your storytelling's so good.
I'm really glad you see that, because that's the one thing I'm obsessed with value. And so typically it falls under, am I going to teach somebody something, or am I going to make them feel comfortable with a concept that they weren't comfortable with before? Is something more accessible now? And that value can come from many places. And I'm still defining exactly what that is for me, but typically those are the two things I try to focus on. I don't really make educational content. So like that's an easy one. Like if you're good with a camera, you can teach someone how to use a camera. That's great. I learned on my own. I am not the person to teach anything like that. I'm very destructive. I'm very chaotic. So like you probably wouldn't follow a camera lesson for me or anything like that.
Yeah, understood.
It's nuts.
Give me top 3 first things you buy. What are the gadgets? What is the gear that you think are most important?
So I would say those like little Rode mics, like those wireless Rode mics. I think right now, if you have any budget, like don't jump on a DSLR camera. I'm using one right now for this, and I use this for everything. Don't buy a DSLR camera when you're starting out. Use your iPhone. They've gotten so much better, or whatever phone you have.
Yeah, brilliant.
But those little like Rode,
they're amazing.
I have them over there. So good.
Yes.
They've gotten so
out of
much
the
better.
box, no setting adjustments. They're amazing.
Oh my gosh. And also now with like Adobe Premiere Pro, like with the enhancements they have in the audio, like you can make it sound like broadcast quality. So it's like, that would be like my number one if you have a little bit of money to spend.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like I spend a lot of money on like services. Obviously, like you're going to need video editing software. There are free options out there, so I wouldn't rush to pay for those. But if you have money to spend on a music library or royalty-free music, I think that's big, because I use a lot of sound effects. And even if you don't notice them, like they're very subtle and they help transition for me, for what I do. As far as the third, storage, like I spend, there are probably better options now, all in the cloud. But for me, I was spending a lot of money on hard drives. So I think it's gotten a lot easier now, especially with like Google Drive and your phone and all that stuff. But God, number 3, what's number 3? Man, I don't know. I guess maybe a camera would be last, because eventually you will want to get a little more cinematic. That's the word all the kids are using. Don't think you need to worry about a drone until you've purchased the first 2 things, and then maybe learn a camera system. Because like I had to learn my Canon camera like through and through, and I only buy Canons now, and I've only bought like a couple, for being completely honest. But learning that camera system was one thing. I have a DJI drone. I had to learn that camera system, and that takes time, and that can slow down your stories. So just make content.
Sure can. Amazing. So those are everything I wanted to go to. The one thing I did want to touch on, because we just talked about cameras pretty extensively, was how we met and why it's tied to a camera.
You want me to tell that story?
Yeah, from your side.
Okay. So me and Brandon met in space. We're on the Galactic Star Cruiser, and I had this camera right here, my Canon R6 with a giant lens on it, on a Joby Gorilla Pod. And it's a big beefy, like if you've seen Casey's setup, it's like Casey's, but like a little beefier because I can handle a little more heft and a microphone on it.
Are you telling the audience you're bigger than Casey?
I don't want to put that out there, but numbers don't lie. Okay.
Did you hear my 3 gym stats, bro?
Stop. No. I need to start running so I can challenge him to a race. Anyway, but no, so I was filming stuff. It was on the Galactic Star Cruiser at Disney World. May it rest in peace. And so I was filming some stuff for a video, and it was my oldest niece's graduation gift. So we went, and Hall sees me holding this camera, and he comes over and starts asking questions, and we just started talking. He had a GoPro. Nothing wrong with that. It was way smaller than mine. It was like, bro,
no judgment.
No judgment. But no, he had a GoPro, which is a great camera to film with. But it was like, yeah, it was just really funny how that kind of brought us together. And he asked about my camera, and we started talking about content. And it was really cool because like we didn't really talk to anybody else on the Galactic Star Cruiser because everybody was doing their own thing. There was enough to keep everyone busy. But it was like this one moment, like lights came down, you could hear music. And I'm like, who's this guy with a perfect chin? Like, I need to get to know this person.
Oh my God. That is exactly what happened. That's so funny. A camera brought us together because I was like, look at this guy. Look at this setup. I was like, that's like a couple $1,000s in his hand right there.
We should have filmed the Canon commercial on the Galactic Star Cruiser. What brings friends together?
We are true nerds at heart.
Absolutely.
Once again, thank you. You're on my first episode, so I wanted to thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to promote, anything from a social aspect where people can find you or where your passion projects are, or anything like that?
I think right now just on YouTube, 8-Bit Blood on YouTube and Instagram. That's where you can kind of find everything I'm doing. We'll be pumping out some more content on YouTube. I need to get more subs. And I need to tell more stories. So, but yeah, YouTube will be a big focus this year. I'm going to make more time for that. So that's really it. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on. This was really great. And you know, I can never say no to you.
You said that every time when I texted you, and I was like, okay, but that doesn't actually tell me whether you want to do it or not.
It's a good point.
I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep going. Well, thank you again. This was amazing.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks.
See you, friend.